This is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert. And thank you for joining me on my podcast, The Morning Mood, all things supply chain leadership and life. Today, I want to talk to you about an early Amazon principle and one you hear thrown around all the time. It's related to innovation and it is about failing fast. And you will hear this thrown around in corporate cultures all the time now. When I joined Amazon, it was the first place that I had ever worked. I had come out of predominantly a freight forwarding and brokerage background. Did a short stint at a couple years at Vastera, which was one of their early customs compliance softwares out of Ruston, Virginia, and so all of those cultures were typical corporate freight forwarding broker culture. My roles were rather strategic or rather, excuse me, they were not strategic. They were pretty tactical. Freight forwarding and brokeraging is fairly tactical. You're dealing with stuff that's coming in the next 30 days or so. So it's a pretty tactical job. And my role at Vastera was, fairly tactical as well. I didn't really have a strategic position. So I came from roles where failing, really wasn't okay. Like, it typically costs a lot of money, and that's not something you wanted to do. And so Amazon was the first place that I worked that, 1, I felt like I could run at full speed and everybody could keep up with me. I really remember when I first joined there that I was surrounded by people who could run as fast as I could. In fact, I was having trouble keeping up. That was amazing, that first feeling of that. But the other thing is that there was this culture of experimenting, this culture of what we call failing fast, but it was really a culture of experimentation and we're going to figure it out. How that was embodied was in this principle of fail fast and learn. The other part of that principle was extremely important, and it's the one everybody drops off. But when we were at Amazon in the early days and we were failing all over the place, we were creating stuff that had never been built, that did not exist, that there wasn't even really a demand for yet. 2-day shipping, free? What? Uh, Before Amazon created Prime, that nobody even knew they wanted that. So, we were creating stuff that never existed. I was having a lovely chat yesterday with my buddy Ron Lee, who will be on the show. She is a longtime executive of one of the big 3 carriers, I'm not gonna say who it is. And she and I were in there building Amazon Global, which did not exist. And so we were reminiscing yesterday about just that, about how we were creating stuff that nobody even thought about. Like, we created a whole new Incoterm. And she was laughing. She's like, Kim, you took this sacred thing in supply chain and you're like, oh, fuck that. We'll just create a new one. And we did. And it was an amazing time. So there was a lot of failing because there was a lot of we didn't know. We were just test and learn is what we were doing. And the philosophy at Amazon at the time was that you should get to 80%, whatever your project was, whatever software it was that you were trying to develop, provided that it didn't crash your website or affect the customer experience or checkout. God forbid you impacted checkout. As long as it didn't do that, the goal was really to get to 80%. Now in modern times, we call that an MVP. Um, and but back then we called it 80% because we didn't have time for cute little terms. So we got to about 80%, and there was a lot of reasons we did this. One was that at 80%, you have a viable product, right? You have something that you can put out there and that you've already spent most of your time on it as well. So when you push forward an 80% product, one, you get to market a little bit faster because you're not over here sitting and spinning on perfection. And then also you have an opportunity to learn about the product as you finalize it. So you've got the base of it's working, the code's working, the flow is working, it's compliant with whatever it is that you need to be compliant with. There's lots of things you have to be compliant with now. Back then, not so much. But anyway, but the refinements of things like font, color, speed, direction, maybe it hits this file instead of that file because of a speed issue. These are all things that we can tweak as part of the 20%. So the very important part of that was that you could launch an 80% ready offering, product, process, service, whatever it was, but just like the fail fast and learn, the 20% was rapidly crafted and implemented. So there was never a situation where we launched 80% and just left it and said, "Oh, okay, we're gonna come back." The famous V2, right? The famous P2 V2 that never happens. "Oh, we'll put that in version 2." There is no version 2. That's always the big joke, right? So, that was the other part of that was that you did the extra 20. You took your opportunity to learn about it. How did it perform? How did customers react to it? How did the market react to it? And then you had an ability to tweak it without fully investing all the money and resources in a 100% product that may actually not work. So that was why you do 80% or why we did 80%, and that's why you can continue to do 80% today. But the rigor, the discipline around that is that you have to do the other 20. You can't just do the 80 and call it quits. And that's what I see a lot of. So that was the culture of Amazon. It was this culture of failing fast and that it didn't have to be perfect. And me as a perfectionist, coming out of a compliance freight forwarding background, as a born and bred perfectionist, let me know that was perfect for me because I was like, yes, every time I get it perfect, it makes it better. And so I was coming into this environment where all of a sudden nothing had to be perfect. It had to be good. It couldn't crash the website, couldn't impact the customer experience, but it didn't necessarily have to be perfect. As a lifelong perfectionist, I will die a perfectionist. That was hard for me to accept. But it also was somewhat liberating because we didn't have to sit and spin. And that was the other part of getting to 80% and going with 80% is that extra 20% sometimes takes a lot of time and can put you behind the market. So it's also about being speed to market. The thing I really want to focus on with this fail fast and learn is the learn part because it's not what corporate cultures today talk about. And I have some great examples that I'm going to share with you that of where, and they're going to seem crazy when I tell them to you. And maybe you've experienced this. I'm hoping that maybe you have, and this will help you understand. But um, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories with companies I have worked with, and their answer to this was, "Oh, but we're failing fast." Failing fast and learning is not building on something for 2 years. Just built, I don't even know what was being built, but building on something for 2 years, likely in a waterfall model, because that's the only time you ever really build on anything for 2 years. Building on something for 2 years, releasing it, it being an absolute abject failure, and then just saying, "But we're failing fast." No. Failing fast applies to 2-week code cycles. Failing fast really needs to have a fast cycle. That's the part of failing fast is the cycle. If you're failing fast on a 2-year cycle, you're just failing. And that is not failing fast. If you had done a release 6 months in over a 2-year period, that would be something more like failing fast because it would also have given you an opportunity to learn something 4 times. The second one that is not failing fast is failing the same shit over and over again and getting the same result. Back to the second part of failing fast and learning. The whole goal of getting to 80% and potentially failing or not having it absolutely perfect is that you learn something. and that you apply it. But I have seen and worked with so many companies where I go and work with a team or I get assigned to a team and I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, oh, well, we've been at this for 3.5 years. And I'm like, well, what is it that you're building? And there's just some incremental, small improvement that they keep making, but it's basically the same thing over and over again. And the excuse I get is, no, we are failing fast. Again, no, you're just failing. Okay. Because there's this learning part of it. It's also called failing forward, not failing backwards or crumbling in place. The third thing that I see is corporations that start thousands of all these tiny projects and initiatives, and they're all over the place, and everybody's got one. And normally, your most obnoxious leader has the biggest, most flashy ones and has them all. And they're actually really not doing anything. But everybody's got 1,000 little projects going. They're behind. They're not happening. What does get launched is crap. And the excuse you get is, "But we're failing fast. But we're failing fast." Oh, but okay. And yep. But are you learning? Are you learning? That is the part of the failing fast. That was the part of the culture at Amazon, was that you could fail, but you had to learn. So when you're just failing on 1,000 different projects and you're calling them little startups and these are our initiatives and we're trying to be like Amazon and move fast. No, you're just failing. This is not what failing fast and learning is about. You're just failing. And it really frustrates me because, of course, after Amazon has made it big and the idea that they had these original principles, I think they have like, I don't know, I've heard there's like 16 principles now, but initially I think there was like 6 or 8. Everybody wants to have principles and they go out and they define their principles and so define how we react. And most of it's bullshit. And the reason that the original ones for Amazon worked is because they were like they weren't even like full sentences and they were poignant. And now Amazon's really made those sort of watery. But anyway, so that is not what failing fast and learning is about. So what is failing fast and learning about? What was Amazon doing at that time that enabled them to become the biggest freaking e-commerce company in the world? I don't know if you tuned in for an episode or so ago. I had Torsten Rung on, and we were talking about Amazon Europe because he was an early employee at Amazon Europe when they had, just wait for it, sit down, clutch your pearls, 10 employees. Torsten was at Amazon when there were 10 employees in Europe for European transportation and logistics. Amazing story. We're going to have him back. But go find that episode, listen to that if you didn't hear it already. But anyway, back to what was the culture of fail fast and learn, fail forward and learn at Amazon, and what was going on there, and what did it really mean? In order to create this, and what do you need to do to create this culture in your organization, in your company, and how do you do it right? So, first of all, you have to create a culture where failing is okay. And what that means is that you have to have a safety net, which means we don't let people work on something for 2 years, 18 months, 3 years, and then it fails at the end. You have a system where you're checking in, you're making sure that what you're doing is making sense and that your people are protected. Okay. You don't just cut them loose and go, okay, babes, when you fail, we'll deal with it. All right. You want to build a safety net around them so that they don't fail entirely and bring down an organization. Because let me tell you, babes, I've seen it. So that failure is okay. It's safe to fail because there are safety nets. So it's safe for you to fail. But also, as part of that failure, there is a learning. We don't get to fail without figuring out the why. And I'm not talking about one why, I'm talking about the 5 whys that go all the way down to the nut. What actually happened to make this break? And what are we doing to fix it? And what's the timeline to fix it? That is a safe failure environment. We failed and we're now focusing on the solution. That is a safe failure environment. That does not mean you get to fuck up all the time, okay? That's not an excuse to just fuck it up. But when you fail, it's safe and you're keeping your people safe. As your leaders and your managers, I talk a lot about leadership. It's your job to put those checks in and balances in them to make sure that they stay safe so that they don't take down the website, okay? That's your job. Number 2, for creating a fail fast and learn, I'm gonna keep harping on that, environment or culture is that you don't reward the failing. Okay? I get on this all the time because I see companies reward bad behavior all the time and then they wonder why they have a shitty culture. I'm like, because all of those guys over there, all those women over there that were behaving badly, that you promoted anyway, that's what created this culture. So I get really upset about this. So do not reward the failure. And again, when companies or organizations poorly adopt the fail fast and learn philosophy, they forget about the learn and they just forget the fail. They're like, look, we failed. It's great. This is how we're going to get move forward is that we keep failing. No, it's the learning part of it. So you do not reward the failure. You reward the learning. And here's how that looks. We don't, oh, we launched the project and it would completely fucking flopped and it locked and we got a deadlock. It was horrible. The website came down. We don't have a party for that. We don't say, okay, but we're going to have a party because we want to celebrate that we did launch it and it's okay that we failed. We want to celebrate that. We're going to celebrate anyway because we said that we would. And let me, I'm seeing it happen. Yes, I know you're listening. You're like, nobody, yes, yes, they do. Yes, they do this, and I've actually been to the parties. So, no, you don't reward the failure, you reward the learning. So, when you failed and you learned that we failed because of X or Y or Z, and you fix X, Y, or Z, that's when you celebrate. You celebrate that you learned something and you made it better. That is the celebration. That is what you focus on. And those are the people that you celebrate and promote. The people who learned and made it better, not the ones who failed and made a big deal about it. Okay. Firefighters, we talk about this. All right. Well, I've blogged about it. We will be talking about firefighters. Okay. Number 3, for creating an environment for failing fast and learning, there is still accountability. This does not become, "Oh, well, we just feel fast and learn here." No, there is still accountability, and, company I worked with years ago, super interesting. I had a lot of gobsmack moments at this organization. This was one of them. And it was this. It was called it actually had a name. I think they got it from some book they were reading at the time. And I think it may be a fairly acceptable industry term. Personally, I think it's bullshit. It is called the blameless postmortem. Now, I had done postmortems, many postmortems, and what a postmortem is, it's in loosely translated after death. But basically, it is after you fuck it up, you do a postmortem, which is a document that documents why it didn't go well, and you document and everybody who participated in the project, program, service, whatever it is that you're building participates in this postmortem. They contribute to the postmortem. It is to document what went wrong and the fix that will be put in place to fix it. The postmortem is not about documenting the problem. It is about documenting the fix. And the reason for the document is that this was so impactful that we want to make sure we never do this again. So we're going to document it. And typically, those should go into some sort of file that the CIO keeps that is a postmortem file so that you can refer to those again in the future if something ever happens. But that is so this particular company was doing what is called a blameless postmortem. And so, of course, being my delicate flower of a self, I stomped right into the office and said, "What the hell is this? What is a blameless postmortem? Like, what's the point of a blameless postmortem?" And this is the answer I got. And again, I was a bit speechless. The answer I got was, "Well, we want everyone to feel safe and not to feel blamed if there's a problem. And the only way to do that is to have a blameless postmortem. And then that way no one is feels that they are personally held accountable." I don't know what kind of bullshit leadership philosophy crap they were on. But I had never heard anything about it in my life. Now, I will admit I had just come out of the NFL playoffs everyday job, as I mentioned before, where, there was a lot of accountability. But I had never worked in an environment where there was no accountability at all. And it was all rolled up under this guise of people need to feel safe so that they can fail fast. And they even flipped my words on me at some point. They're like, "Well, didn't you even say that people need to feel safe in order to feel safe to fail fast?" Yeah, I do. I did, and I did say that, and I just did say that in this podcast, but that doesn't mean that there is a complete lack of accountability. Now, that accountability does not mean that the person necessarily gets fired or the team gets punished or they get ostracized or you can't come to the team function anymore. I don't think we can do that anymore with yeah, we're not allowed to do that anymore. But anyway, back in the day, we just said you can't come to the party. Um, but so that's not about punishing them, but it is about holding them accountable for the flaw, the mistake, the oversight, the whatever it was that caused the problem. And so I completely disagree with a blameless postmortem. I think that's just utter bullshit. The other thing it did is that because it was a blameless postmortem, almost everyone that I painfully read and the meetings that go along with them, I know I didn't make this podcast about video. In fact, I debated on doing a video, which is why I also said I'm not gonna do hair and makeup. But the eye roll on that one was mean if you missed it. Big eye roll. So anyway, so what happens when you do these blameless postmortems, or approach it with this, we don't wanna hold anyone accountable because then they won't feel safe, is that the problem never got solved because we never got down to who actually caused it. What team, what org, what code, whatever it was, because we were not able to have that honest conversation because we were too focused on being blameless and everybody getting a trophy. So, back to the 3 that you need to in order to create a true Amazonian style fail fast and learn culture and environment is number 1. Failing is okay, but you have to apply the learning. The learning is the juicy fruit from the fail, okay? It's really about the learning, not so much about the failing, okay? So you have to learn from the failure. Number 2 is we don't reward failing. We don't go around saying, "Oh, but you tried and you failed and we love that you failed and we're going to throw you that launch party anyway and we're going to promote you and we're going to do all this stuff even though you fucking failed." That is not what failing is about. And failing forward and failing fast is about. We do not reward the failing. We reward the learning and how we made it better. Focus on the people who learned from failing and ran with it. That is what you focus on. And number 3, there is still accountability in a fail fast and learn environment. That does not mean that no one's accountable for failing fast, so that everybody feels safe and nobody feels drug out on the carpet and blah, 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 blah. How you keep people safe in a fail fast environment is you put safety nets around them and you make sure that they're not running too fast down the wrong direction and that they're not releasing bad stuff. And you have some check ins and there's some code checks and there's things like that. That's how you keep them safe. You keep them safe by preventing them from making big failures. But you don't not have accountability. Because if you don't have accountability, you will just have people failing for no goddamn reason. So those are my 3 tips for creating a fail fast and learn environment that looks a lot like what we were doing at Amazon. So that is all I have for you today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.